Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Wow, today I made a video where I had an article that stated that Ukraine received from the West 350 tanks. I made this video earlier this morning. Now I have an article and they tell me here with this article that actually 50 countries provided, a total of 50 countries provided Ukraine with 2,000 tanks. Let me read you this article. 2,000 tanks? Yeah, so today I posted that video. Let me see here. And the title was West supplied Ukraine with over 350 tanks. I guess they were right, because 2,000 is over 350 tanks. 5,000 drones, 30 helicopters, etc. And Romania was involved too. Was like the fourth from the top. It was on the fourth place as a supplier of weapons to Ukraine. And now this comes from Ukrainska Pravda from December 21st. That article was from December 22nd. I don't understand. Anyway, they report, I report here. All right, so this is the title. Nearly 2,000 tanks. Let me give you this right there. Come on. You see? Ukrainska Pravda, nearly 2,000 freaking tanks. All right, maybe go back. No, doesn't freaking work. You got to be kidding me. Stick it in my ass, a little bit too big. Anyway, Ukrainska Pravda, nearly 2,000 tanks and other equipment. Biden speaks of allies' contribution to Ukraine's victory. Hey, I didn't say Ukraine already won anything, but these guys tell us that Biden actually tells us that Ukraine's victory. So, nearly 2,000 tanks and other equipment. Biden speaks of allies' contribution to Ukraine's victory. Okay. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the United States and its allies have provided hundreds of pieces of military equipment so that Kiev could defend itself. U.S. President Joe Biden remarks at a press conference in the White House following negotiations with Zelensky. There was no negotiations. We give you this, shut the fuck up, go home. As reported by a correspondent from Ukrainska Pravda. He said that we want this. They said, no, we're going to give you how much we want. Shut the fuck up. Bye. So let me see here. And I'm quoting this, what Biden said. More than 50 nations, probably 51, have committed nearly 2,000 tanks and other armored vehicles. So there's 2,000 tanks and other armored vehicles. So probably together are going to be that total. But the title is clear, right? No, nearly 2,000 tanks and other equipment. I don't understand. Maybe it's just together armored vehicles and tanks make 2,000. More than 800 artillery systems and more than 2 million rounds of artillery ammunition and more than 50 advanced rocket launcher systems. Together, we have provided billions of dollars in direct budgetary support to make sure that Ukrainian government can continue to provide basic fundamental service, added Biden. Great job, Biden. All right, I verified because it was a little bit of misunderstanding here. The earlier article said that the West supplied over 350 tanks, and they said 1,000 armored fighting vehicles. So they would get to 1,350 and 1,350. And today's article obviously says that it's almost, let me get back to this guy. It says that nearly 2,000 tanks and other armored vehicles. So nevertheless, I don't know if the 2,000 is 1,000 vehicles with 1,000 tanks, but definitely not 350 tanks only. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So anyway, in addition, the US president said the United States has accepted more than 221,000 Ukrainians seeking asylum since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation, and the United States Agency of International Development, USAID, announced the allocation of $374 million for humanitarian aid. Well, they're gonna give more billions and more that, but what I was impressed was nearly 2,000 tanks and other equipment. What is other equipment? And then when he says here, more than 2,000 tanks and other armored vehicles. Well, they're confusing, or they're lying, or somewhere they're just not telling the truth, because earlier this morning I said more than 350. That was what? 360. They would have said more than 360. So more than 350 is more between 350 and 360. So let's give them 355. So 355 tanks, and you got 1,000 armored vehicles. That's 1,350. Well, you got what? 650? Where are they? What are those? Other equipment? What is it? I don't know. It doesn't say. But I suspect there were more than 350 tanks anyway. Even though the first was my impression, wow, what the hell, 3,050 tanks, that's a lot. I didn't hear, the only thing I heard was that Slovenia would give them 80 tanks, and then the 80 tanks will be repaired by the Americans and by the Dutch, and they will be given to Ukraine. And now I found out that, oh, more than 350, and now more than 2,000, almost 2,000. What? What's going on here? I think they had more, and let me give you this little scenario. I think that Ukraine, before the war started, was stocked with weapons. I think it was full armed to the teeth with weapons by these guys. It's just what's his name? Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, stated that the Minsk agreements were just a pretext. They signed the Minsk agreements just as a pretext to postpone buy time to get weapons from NATO and so on. Maybe that was the time when also what's his name, Angela Merkel, whatever her name is. I'm with Meghan Markle, Angela Merkel. For me, I know they're not the same, but they act sometimes. So the former Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, she stated the same thing, that they signed those agreements in 2014, 2015 just to buy time, so they armed Ukraine so it gets the biggest guy in the Eastern Europe, and supposedly it got. Now, when they say that, hey, we provided those guys with about almost 2,000 tanks and other equipment, makes sense, but that was before. I would not be surprised if they didn't have HIMARS before the Russians entered Ukraine. Because I don't think that the Ukrainians did such a good job with 4 HIMARS at the beginning. Remember when they were delivered the first 4 HIMARS? Everybody was like, oh my god, the Russians were stopped in their tracks. My god. And then another 4, like 20, they blew up the Ukrainians, the Russians all of a sudden. I don't think so. I think there were many more systems over there, and when they say we send the 4, they say, okay, now activate the 50 that they are already there, or something like that. The reason how I reason this and how I get to this conclusion is the fact that Poland ordered 500 HIMARS. Why would you fucking order 500 HIMARS when these guys get the job done with 4, 8, 12, and then 18? So if these guys are beating the Russian army with 18 HIMARS, I think that's how much they were delivered at one point, and they were to turn the tide and all that. Why do the Poles order 500? Who are they going to fight? 100 Russians? 100 Russia? Or what? Or more than 100 Russians, if 20 did the job done, right? Whatever, man. It's just a bullshit. I think the Ukrainians were armed and troops were over there, and they were... I don't know. That's what we're going to find out. But I stick with this theory that the Ukrainians had not only it was very well organized, very well equipped, very the command centers, and they were not the Ukrainians over there that were doing everything. It was all to the NATO standards, maybe not to the up there, and they were like Germany, which is but they expected, so they got as much as they could in 8 years. And the Russians did the same thing, so here we go. But the Russians did not expect probably to fight this kind of force. They expected to fight Ukraine that was supposed to, and we all thought. That's why when it was the Russians started the invasion, or whatever you want to call it, I thought maybe in 2 weeks it's all done. Why? Because I thought Ukraine, how can possibly Ukraine have anything, since it doesn't have money, economy is in deep shit, corrupt country, she doesn't have anything. It was just a rusty army, like Romania, okay, or like Saddam, a bullshit army. I said the Russians are gonna fuck it up in 2 weeks like nothing. And then after that 2 weeks, I was like, what the fuck what's going on here? And then 3 weeks and 4 weeks. Not that I wanted, but that's how I expected, by how I knew that things are over there. I didn't know those guys are pumping money. And when the Russians said, well, the NATO armed Ukraine, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. No, that's why they demilitarize Ukraine. Yeah, what's to demilitarize? They have a rusty army, bullshit, and so on. But no, it was not so. And now I'm 99% certain that they had everything done to a standard that the Russians were like, huh? Like Hitler was surprised when he got to fight the Soviets, the communists, and he realized that the communists were coming, and were coming, and were coming. And he said, okay, we expected the... I can't remember exactly the number, but I'm going to give you an example. They expected, let's say, 100 Soviet divisions, and the Soviets had like 800 divisions. They're like, what the fuck? So it was a totally wrong estimate. Didn't expect the Russians to have this many divisions and throw this many people in the fight to be boom bang. Nevertheless, that's what it was with that. This is with this. And they adjusted. The Russians adjusted, and they will adjust because they have the resources. So those 2,000 tanks or whatever they say they have, I have no doubt they had those before, ready over there. Probably they started dumping, the old Soviet Russian tanks, whatever, from Romania, from Czech Republic, from Slovenia, from Slovakia, from Poland, from all these weasel countries, gave them the garbage or whatever it was. They got new ones or whatever they will get. The manufactured arms companies made a lot of money, the bankers the same way, and the Ukrainians had a lot of tanks to maneuver over. And the Russians were like, oh fuck, how many did we kill? Alright, so thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.